Mom kicks out my 16-year-old sister for not doing it with my rich neighbor's boy. My parents had a very ugly divorce, and my mother got full custody of my sister, 16, but apparently didn't want me because she didn't even bring me up in court, so I'm with my dad now. Since my parents got a prenup, my dad kept all his money. We live in a pretty wealthy neighborhood. We're probably the poorest there. Our next-door neighbor has a lot of money. We go over there for dinner, and his son can't stop talking about it. His son, 17, goes to school with my younger sister, so my mother and her are over for dinner a lot. My mother didn't work while they were married, 15 years, so she's not well off financially. My neighbor's son, we'll call him Jack, has taken a very sexual interest in my sister, taking any chance to flex his money and catcall her. So, one night, my mother, father, sister, and I were at dinner with my neighbor. Not 15 minutes after we arrive, he begins harassing my sister, telling her about how hard he wanted to bone her and making an excessive amount of remarks on her breasts and ass. My mother apparently thought that if Jack and my sister did it, they might get married and my mom would get some of his money. So after dinner, he invited my sister to go upstairs with him. She was reluctant, but he practically forced her up the stairs. I followed them because I wasn't about to allow a rich jerk rape my sister. So I'm sitting outside his room when I hear a commotion and some yelling. I stand up and see my sister run out of his room, with her dress torn across her chest and some down the front, leaving her breasts exposed. She hides behind me, calling for my mother and father. I'm at this point ready to actually beat this snob to death. He comes out saying, "What's wrong, girl? I'm just having a little fun." To which I replied, "Fun's over," and grab him. My parents and Jack's father are up the stairs before I can do anything. My father's pissed and puts his jacket on my sister, so she has some cover. He says, "What the hell is going on here? Did you do this to my little girl?" His father steps in and tells us it's time to leave, so we head out, trying not to make any illegal mistakes. Once we were out, my mother grabs my little sister and says, "What the hell is wrong with you? You could have had it all, but you gave it away, you moron. I think you need to stay at your father's for a little while," and storms to her car and drives off. That was 2 years ago. My little sister is about to graduate high school and has forgotten about my mother pretty much altogether. I still see Jack at some video game tournaments on my college campus. He avoids me and I avoid him. Sometimes we play in bracket and he sucks. Every time I take his money, I immediately give it to my sister when I get home. Sort of like a retribution fund from him. He's given her over $2,500 in these past 2 years. Our fathers are still friends and hang out a good amount. This is awful. I can't believe how selfish your mother sounds. Your sister is lucky to have you and your father in her life, especially on that specific day. Who knows what could have happened if it was just your sister and mom who attended the dinner. Your mother is deluded for trying to get money by using her daughter's body at the age of 16. It is disgusting. As for the neighbor's kid, he must have been brought up like a spoiled brat for him to think he has the right to just rip your sister's clothes off. I'm glad she defended herself and didn't let anything stupid happen. Apparently, rich kid puke is not the parents' job to clean up. I worked as a lifeguard at a private beach club for the past 6 years. It was full of young families and older adults, so I got tons of entitled parent/kid stories. One of the worst ones from this past summer involved a family that I've seen at the club for the past few years. The family consisted of a mom, Christina, a dad, Patrick, and 2 kids, a 5-year-old girl named Ellie and a 3-year-old boy named Preston. There was a common trend at my beach club where families would arrive around 11 a.m., and mommy and daddy would drop the kids off at either the beach or the pool and go straight to the bar for a few hours. This family was no exception. There were a few times when me and another lifeguard would see Christine and Patrick getting into drunken arguments in the pool area and then one of them storming off. This, of course, is really sad to see that this might be their dynamic, and also that their 2 small children had to see this. But this is important context to show that Christine and Patrick see nothing wrong with getting drunk in public and having huge arguments in a public area around other families and kids on multiple occasions. Anyway, one day this past summer I was in the pool area during the last hour of the day, 5 to 6. This hour, Preston was in the pool swimming around. His parents always would put some floaties on him and just let him loose in our pool while they chatted with friends or went and got food/drinks. Our pool is 3 feet deep in the shallow end and 6 feet deep in the deep end. Both the shallow and deep ends were too deep for Preston to stand in if he slipped out of his floaties, and he could not swim at all on his own. Preston was causing some chaos earlier in the hour by swimming up to groups of random kids and trying to play with them, by scratching their backs and necks and trying to push their heads underwater. He was a small kid, so he wasn't doing any real damage, but still, his parents shouldn't let your kid touch/bother other people. Because of this, his dad got in the pool to entertain Preston for a bit. At 6, one of the other lifeguards blew his whistle to let everyone in the pool area know that the pool was closing for the day and that they had to leave. I was down at the deep end doing a chemical test to see what our levels were at the end of the day. Preston and his dad got out at the shallow end stairs. Once Preston got out of the pool, he took 5 steps and proceeded to projectile vomit all over the pool deck, 3 times. His dad yelled, "Christine, he's throwing up all over the place!" And Preston's mom ran over and wrapped him in a towel. She took him over to a chair and then proceeded to give him more food. "He just swallowed too much pool water," she said to her husband. The best part is that after giving Preston some carrot sticks, the family packed up all of their things and just left. Neither parent apologized for their kid throwing up everywhere. Neither attempted to clean it up. Neither even told the lifeguard that someone threw up on the pool deck. Nothing. The pool wasn't even that busy, so all the lifeguards and members in the pool area either saw Preston throw up or heard his dad yell that he just did. I was giving the mom the evil eye as she walked out of the pool area, and she just gave me a quick smile and kept on walking. So the other guards and I had to stay an extra 30 minutes after the end of our shift cleaning up a kid's vomit, along with a very underprepared kid from the janitorial department. It sounds like your work experience was horrible, and I can't imagine how upsetting it must have been for you. You should definitely file a complaint about the mom. This is not okay. You should have really called her up on it at the time, as she should really be cleaning the mess up herself. I can't believe there are parents that leave their kids alone so they can go for drinks, especially in a pool too deep for them. Rich entitled aunt throws a tantrum, gets shut down by her teenage son. My mother's sister married a wealthy man about 20-some-odd years ago. I'm not sure what my uncle does for a living, but he makes enough money to classify as a millionaire. He's a pretty cool, down-to-earth person who, despite his financial status, is very humble and generous. My aunt, on the other hand, believes she deserves everything she wants because she's a good, God-loving person who devotes her life to God and His teachings, so she deserves to be pampered. From the sound of it, she doesn't cook, so her family does takeout every night. She doesn't clean, so they have a housekeeper, and she doesn't drive. I have no idea how my uncle has managed to stay with my aunt as long as he has. So back in 2018, my aunt, uncle, and younger cousin visited the family for Christmas. A few days after Christmas, I went to Boston with my aunt, uncle, cousin, and grandfather as their tour guide. They wanted to go to a few high-end stores around the Prudential/Copley area, and I knew that area very well. After we had gone through all the high-end stores that I felt very out of place in, and my uncle dropped $150,000 on a purse for my aunt, we went to a popular cheesecake chain restaurant. The first thing I said when we sat at the table was, "I can pay for my own meal." And my uncle gave me a nonsense. What kind of tourists would we be if we didn't give our personal tour guide some form of payment? We wouldn't have found this cool place if it weren't for you. We'll pay for your meal. I ended up ordering the cheapest thing I could find, a turkey club sandwich, and decided I would forgo the cheesecake. When dessert time came, I initially passed on a piece of cheesecake, but my aunt and uncle pressured me into ordering one once I admitted I had never had a piece from that restaurant. I offered to pay for my meal again once the check came, and once again, my uncle refused to let me. Fast forward a few days. My aunt and the rest of the family got into a bit of an argument about the dinner plans for that night. I don't remember everything that was said. I was playing Mario Kart with my other cousin's daughters and my younger sister when this went down. I think she wanted to go to an expensive seafood restaurant, but the 4- and 8-year-old girls refused to eat seafood, and my older cousin's wife is allergic, so everyone else was suggesting we go elsewhere. It led to my aunt crying about, "I've done so much for all of you this week, and you can't do something for me? We were kind and generous to pay for everyone every time we've gone to eat. No one else has offered to pay, so we've had to foot the whole bill every time." We basically went out to eat for breakfast and either lunch or dinner just about every day at my aunt's demand because she claimed that her 17-year-old son wouldn't eat home-cooked food. He wolfed down several pieces of the traditional French-Canadian meat pie my grandmother made for Christmas. My uncle wouldn't let anyone else help pay for the restaurant bills because he had more than enough money to pay for everyone and knew his wife's demands of going to restaurants as a family for every meal could be a financial strain on the rest of us. She cried something about the sacrifices she made in Boston, like settling for a $1,500 purse when she wanted the $2,500 purse and forgoing the matching wallet, which was a lie. She wanted the $1,000 purse that the store didn't have in stock, so she settled for a $1,500 purse, and eventually said, "We were even nice enough to pay for a lunch when we went to Boston because she decided to spend $40 on a set of measuring cups and didn't have enough money left for lunch. And then she had to order a piece of cheesecake." Yes, I'll admit, I did spend $40 on a 6-piece measuring cup set. And before I could even start to defend myself, my 17-year-old cousin went, "What are you talking about, Mom? She offered to pay for her food like 4 times and Dad told her not to worry about it. She got the cheapest thing on the menu and wasn't even going to get a piece of cheesecake, but you and Dad forced her to. Not to mention, Dad has offered to pay for his family's meals every time we've gone out, but Dad's never let her. Dad doesn't mind paying for everyone, so I don't know why you do." My aunt quieted down after that and reluctantly agreed to go somewhere else for dinner. I don't have many stories about her because she lives in a different part of the country and will go months, if not years, without talking to the rest of the family for no reason, so I rarely interact with her. I can't believe how selfish your aunt sounds, and how your uncle manages to cope with someone so high maintenance. Your uncle and cousin sound great, and I'm glad he stuck up for you before you could even say anything for yourself, as this shows that even her own son thinks she's being pathetic. Idiot parents expect food and gifts on little sister's birthday. My little sister's birthday was yesterday. She recently turned 12 and has started 7th grade today. She's well on her way to teenhood, from puberty on her body to how she interacts with her friends and having typical teen angst and moods. That normal stuff. The first early hours were uneventful, but started out pretty awful thanks to two stooges I will dub my parents. As usual every year, both parents do nothing to the little kid. My mother bought a tiny slice of cake for her that my father ends up eating most of because birthday needs everyone's cake to share, leaving tiny-ass bits and pieces along with spit. When my sister asked for another slice, they moan saying that they can't afford to buy another one. My father makes some snide comments about my little sister's body, such as, "Why are you getting so fat? You're getting so big, you don't need that cake. You should be glad I ate it since you'll get big." And, "Look at this woman trying to be sexy with those shorts. Fat butt." He then proceeds to call my aunt and moan to her about how hoey she is looking. A friendly reminder that this is a 12-year-old going through a confusing and struggling change physically. To make matters worse, as my sister starts to get mad and yells at this fat slob to stop, my mother with her sour attitude begins to shout and berate her for being rude and disrespectful, calling her a list of names and insults before smiling at her face and saying, and I quote, "I wish when people go outside and see how your hair looks and ass looks, they slap and beat you good. You don't get nothing from me because you're stupid." As my sister's reduced to tears and cries, they then proceed to talk in Creole, insulting her more, thinking she's stupid enough to not understand what they're saying. I decided to take this poor little kid away from this hostility for a bit, so we went out to the mall for some ice cream and McDonald's, bought her a couple of gifts including a chocolate kit set, some iPhone cases, candy-tasting lip gloss, and just chilled out like big sis/little sis. She was starting to feel much better and even laughed when I cracked jokes about these stooges being stooges. My boyfriend saw us together and had a good time talking to her about school, friends, etc., and had some playful moments pulling pranks on me, poking my face and stuff. He even bought her a large slice of cake for her to enjoy herself. In the end, my sister went from being sad to elated once more. As we got home, my parents demanded to know where I was with her, and I told them that I was just giving her some cool birthday presents and taking her out to eat. My father was expecting me to bring them food on the way back, claiming that there was no food in the house. I silently told them that they can have the Haitian takeout that they were going to order for my little sister since KFC was too expensive for them. My father then started to claim I was being selfish since I bought nice things for her but not for him, before he shut his fat mouth down saying that you had most of this little girl's cake and he's not entitled to being a spoiled brat on a little girl's birthday. My mother tried to say something about being nice on this special day, but I reminded her not to lecture me about being nice and ask if that little performance of you telling my sister she should get beat for standing up for herself was your way of doing it. They both shut their asses and had nasty looks at my little sister as she was holding a big cake and some of her gifts. They had big mad attitudes and were moaning about it to my aunt the entire time before my aunt told them to piss off and focus on that little girl instead of making it about them and hanging up on their face. I don't really have a relationship with these people above making sure they are taken care of financially, their physical health, and making sure my little sister has basic needs including food, clothing, and help with homework. I never really appreciated how entitled, spoiled, and so self-absorbed they can be, and especially like to play the poverty card when they claim that they can't afford to help or pay for basic necessities. Growing up alongside my older brother and little sister, they claimed that they could never afford not just normal child things and activities, like toys, bikes, birthday parties, vacations, etc., but comfortable clothes, hair care services, and healthy food because it was expensive and America is a terrible rich country. Yet, they were able to have thousands of dollars to blow on lottery tickets hoping that they can become rich, sending money towards their relatives who were also greedy and entitled, and squandering it on dollar store stuff for themselves. It also pisses me off that my father would often spend money on buying nice clothes, toys, and gadgets to send to relatives outside the US, yet claims that buying them for us would be expensive and that we should be appreciative of the dollar store shit that we would wear, tear, and break clearly. It rubs me that he can't afford school trips that I wanted to go to, yet he had money to buy plane tickets to get away from the US for a month. Me and my older brother at the time would get said necessities and assistance from our local public schools, neighbors, and relatives instead of the two people that were supposed to be caring for us. My mother is no better, constantly siding with my father on everything and having pretty much a bitchy attitude whenever we kids have a chance of succeeding. To this day, my brother resents both of them since my mother was forcibly admitted to a mental hospital and he had to take care of me and my sister at the time. All my dad said to him was, "Deal with it," as he was vacationing in Haiti. So, sorry if this is long-winded, but I'm feeling so pissed off after yesterday and just need to get this off my chest. I question how I was born to these two messes every day of my life and still finding an answer. At least I was able to make sure my sister had a good birthday and started being 12 with a somewhat positive outlook. There's still some scrapes like puberty I have to talk about to her, but I'm hopeful she will blossom into a neat young teen and eventually get away from these people for good. Your sister must really appreciate you being there for her, especially on her birthday. With such careless parents, you siblings had to always be there for each other to make life somewhat easier, and you did a great job by taking her away from the situation and treating her to some nice stuff. I find it really upsetting that your parents would say the things that they said to your sister on her special day. It must have really hurt her. I hope somehow they become better parents, as you definitely deserve it. EM thinks she's entitled to my debit card. I, 17-year-old male, had just gotten a debit card. I begged my dad for one for a while and finally got one on my birthday. I work part-time at a food chain and put all the money I earn into it. I'm always careful with it and make sure it's with me whenever I'm out. My dad gave me the card so I can see how to use it and if I'll use it wisely, sort of like a test to see if I can be responsible with money later on life. Keep in mind, my family isn't particularly rich. We're stable, but we don't consider ourselves really prominent. I use the money I get to pay for things that I like to buy, to ease some of the financial pressure that is on both my working parents. I use it for things like games for my PC, gifts and treats I get for myself whenever I go out, and I've been saving up for a PS5. I was hanging out with my friends at the mall. We were walking, talking, and browsing stores. Suddenly, one of my friends, we'll call her Jay, started feeling dizzy and unwell. We knew what to do since this happened before. She would get nauseous if she walked too much without rest. My two other friends sat her down and calmed her while I rushed to a nearby supermarket to get her water and some aspirin. I get the items and quickly scan the registers to find them all occupied. At the end of the row of registers, though, there was a self-checkout lane that was practically empty. I run towards the machine, scan my items, and take out my debit card to pay. As I bag my items, I try to wiggle the credit card into my back pocket. I had obviously failed and it fell, but with the place being loud and me trying to be quiet, I hadn't noticed that my card had fallen. I run out to meet up with my friends and make sure Jay is alright. That's when I realized my card wasn't with me. I quickly scan around the bench we were sitting in, confirm that I'd probably dropped it at the self-checkout. I race back to the checkout area and I see only one person there. Introducing Entitled Mother, who is scanning a few very pricey items, caviar, sparkling water, premium shampoo, etc. I approach her to ask her about my card when I see she's holding it in her hands. I politely tap her shoulder and ask for my card. She turns and gives me an expression I can only hope people of her kind can make. She waves the thing in front of me and says, "Back up, kid. This is mine. Why would a child like you even have this?" I'm a very standard 6'1" male with a baby face, so it was easy to assume I was still going through puberty. "Ma'am, the card is mine. Please give it back." This woman is now ignoring me and was reaching her hand towards the scanning machine to pay for her things. I glance at the screen with her list of items and am horrified to see the order amount of $200. My card had one of those chips that allows you to simply place the card on the sensor to pay without having to physically swipe the card. I quickly put my hand over the sensor and tell her to hand it over. I didn't scream but said it sternly enough for it to appear like a threat. What happens next still makes me cringe to this day. Entitled Mother fake falls on the ground, starts covering behind her arms, and yells, "Thief! Thief! He wanted to rob me! He hit me to steal from me! Help!" This immediately catches the attention of everyone that registers behind us. Introducing my savior, nice security guard. He approaches us and tries to understand what's going on. He approaches the woman at first to see what happened, where she sputters slurs and racist remarks at me. I'm Middle Eastern, and where I live, some locals have very unique views on us. The officer, I later learned, was also Middle Eastern. He helps her up and, turning to me, asks me in Arabic, our native tongue, what happened. This took both me and Entitled Mother by surprise since this guy was as white as vanilla. I explain everything in Arabic to him, with Entitled Mother being ignored as she mumbles and growls. After hearing what I had to say, he ordered both us to come in the back room so he can check the tapes. We're both taken by other security guards into the security's main office and wait. After about 5 minutes of awkward silence waiting with Entitled Mother, the security guard comes back and demands my card back from Entitled Mother. Entitled Mother then bursts into a ball of sobs and tears. "I'm a single mom and need the money," and gives this whole charade. I'm there watching while I die inside from the amount of discomfort I'm in. On one hand, I know this woman is lying and just looking for an excuse to steal from a minor. But on the other hand, she's a 40-something woman that probably has kids, and instead of being responsible and owning up to her actions, she's playing victim and throwing a tantrum like a baby. Security confiscated the card, and after confirming that it was mine, it had my name on it, and I had my ID on me, they let both of us out separately. I met back up with my friends and told them what happened. As I'm telling the story, I catch Entitled Mother in the corner of my eye, walking by with what looks like her husband and teenage daughter. I look back up and give her the bird. She notices, but before she could do anything, her husband looks towards me and gives an apologetic look and shoves Entitled Mother ahead. Their teenage daughter later came back as I recognized her from school. We talked for a bit and she again apologized for her mother's actions. It's alright, no biggie. A month later, and me and her are now dating, and I've even been over to their house. Her mom wasn't that talkative to me. I was all smug and tried being nice to her. Entitled Mother's husband was a genuine man with a good heart, and I'm glad his daughter resembled him more than her mother. I'm writing this before I head out on a date. Wish me luck. Wow, that's a crazy way to meet your girlfriend. If you are really serious about her, then you should try to make peace with her entitled mother and put everything she did at the supermarket behind you. Yes, it was crazy and immature, but if you're looking to stay with your girlfriend, it will make things a lot easier if you and her mom get along. Just a heads up. If you enjoyed these stories, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Check out the other videos on your screen right now. Otherwise, you're definitely the jerk.